I have a bag, a very large bag. My name is Rod. It gets a bit confusing. When I was born, and I was born at a young age, and my parents had a sense of humor failure or something because they called me Roderick. Now, as a name, that is actually Old Scottish, and it means leader of men. And it was a bit of a challenge because my brother was called Davy, and my other brother was called Bill. So you can imagine living life with a name like Roderick. But luckily they threw that out and then they decided to call me Roddy, which is all through my formative years, the name that people called me. So my loved ones, my parents, my friends, my school teachers, they all called me Roddy. Now why this is important and why it's even relevant is that on my very first day at work, right, which was in 1987, I'll get to the toilet paper in a second, but in my very, very first day at work, it was a beautiful sunny day in Scotland, and I can remember it well because that doesn't happen often. And it was in Thistle Street in Edinburgh, and there was this gentleman walking along on the phone to his wife, and this was the size of the mobile technology. Can anybody remember that? Oh, wow, right. So we do have an aging population here. So he had his phone, he's going, yes, darling, thank you very much. Oh, yes, it was a wonderful dinner last night. And yes, we'll have more roast potatoes tonight. That was exactly the conversation. And I remember that because when it's your first day at work, you remember that, right? That's what happened. The second profound thing that happened to me having seen mobile technology for the first time was my name got altered. So I walked into the office and I met the guy who was going to train me. His name was Alan Woods, big guy, ginger hair, football player, great guy. And he said to me, what's your name then? I says, Roddy. Oh, that's too posh. Rod. And from that day on, I've been known as Rod. My daughter is in the audience. She calls me actually, my team are in the audience. They have names for me that I won't repeat on stage. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the company I work for. But before I do that, I need to set the stage. And, you know, I want to talk about the experience I had last year. So hands up here who has a Nokia phone. Honestly. Really? Hands up here who had a Nokia phone. Thank you. Right, this is a Nokia phone. I bought this today. I actually went out and bought this today. This is my daughter saying, what? This is my daughter's phone. What? I can't tell you what this is, but I will later. Everybody knows what this is? And everyone should know what this is. Why is this relevant? Good question. The guy through there said to me, why have you brought toilet paper? I said, I get nervous. That's a lot of toilet paper. I get very nervous. But this isn't a comedy routine. Nokia has been around for a long time. And some of you have had Nokia phones, but every single person in this auditorium today has technology that sits in your phone that comes from Nokia, without doubt. It doesn't matter whose brand of phone you have, I guarantee that you have Nokia technology in it. But the transformation that Nokia has gone through in 159 years is pretty amazing. The transformation started on the banks of the River Nokia, where, as a paper mill, Nokia made paper products. Or you're getting the right side? Maybe not with the toilet paper. Is that better? Started off with paper products, including toilet paper, right? And through the life cycle, rubber products, cables, TVs, etc., until when the brand really became global. At the height of Nokia's popularity with mobile phones, digital devices, 40% of the world population who had a phone had a Nokia phone. Pretty impressive, right? I mean, wouldn't you just kill for that kind of market domination? But then something happened. We changed. And the most popular phone is moved on to a different brand, but it has Nokia technology in it. So the transformation that's taking place in the organization is absolutely tremendous. Things don't stay the same. As an organization, we now produce the technology that enables organizations to work. I guarantee if you've made or received a call today here in Portugal, your phone call would have gone through Nokia networking technology. Most of the networks in Portugal are actually either on the mobile applications or on the 5G technology, right? 5G core. So you'll utilize it every single day. When you wake up in the morning, I got in trouble in India. There's some people here from Wipro in the crowd, and I got into trouble because I did a presentation in India, in Calcutta, and I talked about toilet paper, and I talked about when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? See, the grey matter's working, right? What's the first thing you do? You check your phone. You pick up your phone. Of course, I said the first thing you do in the morning when you wake up is you pick up your technology and you start to use it. So the patent technology that we have, you use every day. And this hand comes up in the audience and says, did Nokia patent toilet paper as well? No, but if we did, it'd be a different conversation today. So it's very much a technology company. We have a vast technology portfolio, which I'll talk about in just a second. But this is just the preamble, right? I want you to understand that Nokia still exists because I quite often get asked two questions. You work for Nokia? Okay. They still exist? All right. Okay. And I used to have a Nokia phone. It was the best phone I ever had. That tends to be the response you get. We are as an organization that is constantly striving with innovation to make connectivity wider for people, right? So it's not just about how fast and how quickly you can download information and how quickly you can access information. But the technology landscape is also about inclusiveness. It's also about making networks available to countries that don't have that capability today. You know, the statistics clearly state that the vast majority of the world population is not connected, so they're digitally disenabled, right? And we work very hard to try and achieve this. But to give you a little bit of a size and feel of the company as it is today, network infrastructure, mobile networks, cloud and network services, and Nokia technology have very large portfolios. And I'm not going to go through all the detail here for you. The one thing I'll pull out for you is Bell Labs. Our commitment to the future of technology is pretty phenomenal, and the pedigree the company has goes back a long, long way. We have 10 Nobel Prizes for science, 8 of which are for physics and 2 of which are for chemistry. There's not many companies have that pedigree. 150 billion in R&D spend, I think, is also showing the commitment that we have. And all of our networking equipment have AI enablement. In fact, if I walk over here and pick up, I wasn't allowed to bring a chip from the office because I'm not very good at looking after things sometimes. But we have a chip this size, a networking chip that could run all the network traffic in a country the size of Belgium. So you can see transformation from this large phone over here, which is actually a bunch of toilet paper, to this. You can see how technology has evolved, right? Huge, massive R&D spend. And on the far right-hand side, there's an area called Nokia Business Services. We've changed their name, and I had to explain to Kathy Gu and others this morning that actually, you know, it's not GBS anymore, it's NBS. And that brings me on to an interesting topic. We talk about the people in this room are at a different stage of evolution. Whether your organization is just building your first shared services through to the most advanced technically and capability-wise at the other end of the spectrum, you know, we can learn from each other. I learned a huge amount in my time here last year, and I'll share a little bit of that later on. when a company goes through transformation, your shared service environment and your GBS environment needs to go through transformation as well. And you know, the presenters and the director talked about the fact that we're evolving at breakneck speed, and it's getting faster. They say when you get older, things move faster, and that's true with technology more than anything else. NBS is a portfolio, looks after the financial processes as well as our employee services, source to pay, and to give you an idea of a size, indirect procurement, which sits in source to pay, is about 1.1 billion. Our payroll that we do, 6.8 billion per annum. Our accuracy rate is 99.89. Our our monthly pay slips is something like 95,000 pay slips. So it's large. It's high volume. When we started way back in 2005, the environment wasn't as it is today. So when I started my work in 1986, 87, we used carbon paper, right? There was no emails, et cetera, When we look at how technology's advanced to the other end of the spectrum, when you have a meeting today, you don't need to take notes. Your minutes are produced for you. Your questions are captured. Your quality of your contribution in that meeting is all there. That's Gen AI capabilities for you. That's there. That's being used today. Such a large spectrum. When we started off with the shared service environment, the paradigm was what? Move it to a low-cost country. There was a fair amount of process re-engineering. There was synergies. There was labor arbitrage. But we've moved so much forward now that the value proposition of GBS has changed completely, right? When I was building out shared services 20 years ago, we built one in Barcelona. I had 13 languages mother tongue for telecommunications. Prior to that, we built out one in India and used labor arbitrage as part of the business case. But today, it's about value creation. But in order to create value, there's a mindset shift that needs to happen in organizations. Because many senior leaders, many CFOs, COOs, and CEOs still think that shared services are about cost reduction. Does that sound familiar? Yes, Rod. Audience participation. Does that sound familiar? Excellent. This is like afternoon shift, right? A keynote should do three things. It should educate, it should entertain, and it should elevate the discussion, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of education. You're in Portugal, right? It's after lunch. What do we say? Bon tarde. I'd like to hear everyone say bon tarde. Really? Bon tarde. Once again, bon tarde. Thank you. Right, so we're good. Financial shared services, we rebranded to GBS. And you know, when you rebrand, it's like, you know, Rod, you need to change the name. I said, well, why? Shared services is what shared services is. But the output is different. The value proposition, it needs to be different, Rod. So what are we going to do about it? So what do? You go to the place where all the analysts like to hang out, right? Wall Street. The first part of my career, and I don't like to talk about it, and I don't use LinkedIn very much, was in asset management. I worked with Standard Life, Aberdeen Asset Management, and Fidelity Investments. So I got to hang out with a lot of really cool people, investment analysts, fund managers, you know, people who really had their finger on the pulse with everything. So I spent some time and said, okay, we're moving from the shared service environment into GBS. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for organizations? What is value creation? How do we make things different? Or is it just a change in name? Remember? Roderick, Roddy, Rod. I'll come back to that later. But is it? So everyone's saying BS. I went, yeah, BS, GBS. BS. Yeah? And your point is, Rod, you come to Wall Street and you're asking about BS? Seriously? Go have a look outside. So I did. That is me. And I want to just say two things. Firstly, that bull was not damaged. Secondly, it was November and my ears took weeks to recover. That was really cold. But in order to understand the mindset shift from shared services to GBS to advanced GBS, you need to really understand the value proposition shift. Just as Nokia had gone through a massive transformation, we have to go through a transformation as well. Oops, sorry, pressed the wrong button. So when you talk to analysts, they give you a cutting-edge view on what's going on. And rather than going back to when we did the transformation a few years ago to go from a shared service environment to a GBS environment, I'd rather take a few moments to talk about transformation that's happening now, that everybody's talking about, this buzz, all right, which is AI and Gen AI. 3 weeks ago in Helsinki, we had the privilege of sitting with one of the world's leading experts in technology from the Boston Consulting Group. And it was a profound conversation. When we talk about the impact that Gen AI will have on us, not only with what we're doing today, but the acceleration of change over the next few years and decades, it's astronomical. It's very difficult to comprehend what will happen and then how this will impact everybody in this room, the way that we lead our own life. So when you're looking at the changes that we've all seen in our lifetime, doesn't matter how old you are, right? If that was the size of a mobile phone in the 1980s through to where we are today with cutting-edge technology, the way that we live our life, everything that we do has a digital aspect to it. When you look at the technology, it's phenomenal. And I'm not going to get into, because I can get into the trap about talking about technology, but I won't, because there's many people in this room here that are better equipped to talk about it, and you'd have a much more interesting conversation with them. I'd rather talk to you about the most important aspect that sometimes gets forgotten, and that's the demographics. It's the people, all right? Some really interesting factors up here. The center of growth are rebalancing. The bad news for us all right now is that Europe is in stagnation. From a geopolitical situation, it's been a very tough couple of years. If you look at the macroeconomic situation as well, the cost of capital, it's really, really challenging. When you look at the generations that are coming up and through the ranks, there's a significant paradigm shift on how they will spend their money, but also the fact that they're remarkably digitally enabled, much more than the average person sitting in this room. When you look at healthcare and you look at urbanization, again, massive swings. Specifically when you look at urbanization, an extra 2.5 billion additional people living in cities, that will put a tremendous strain on infrastructure. So there has to be masses of investment that needs to happen over the next 24 months to 5 years to beyond that time frame. So this is quite profound. These changes are what we're talking about, and we're going to talk about over the next few days. But I want to move on quite quickly. My daughter's freaking out now. She's sitting in here, and she's like, "Daddy, oh my goodness." By the way, my daughter is the one on the left. You think that's funny? Our son is going to be 3 in July, and Maria's going to get embarrassed now, but when he was born, we're in the delivery room afterwards, you know, when they give you the baby and the nurse comes and hands her little son over Callum, and she looks at me, and she looks at Mariella, and she looks at the baby, and she looks at me and says, "Are you the father of the baby or the father of the mother?" Say no more. The speed of change impacting Sophia, right, is phenomenal. Sophia's at school. She's learning coding. She's learning coding. From the age of 5, they learn coding at school. So by the time they come into employment, it's a different world. But the speed of change for Sophia is going to be absolutely breakneck. So by the time Sophia gets to the age of 38, the pace of change will be 60 times faster than it is just now. 60. By the time you all come to the age, you'll get to 2040, the speed of change will be between 70 and 80. By the end of this century, the speed of change will be 1,000 times faster than it is just now. 1,000 times faster. But some things don't change. And we need to think very carefully about the people dynamic that we have. Now, Nokia was 159 years old on Sunday. All right? So it's our 160th year this year. The previous Sunday, another legend, Madonna. Does anyone know Madonna? Right, okay. I'll take that as a yes. Madonna performed a concert in Copacabana Beach. And it made headlines because it was 1.6 million people. Madonna as a human being has, from the age of 16, 17, reinvented herself so many times that she's just as popular today as she was when she started back in the 1980s. Where's the 1980s? Around about here. So, the human aspect of reinventing herself is extremely important. And what I wanted to talk to you about is what is your role here, right? Your companies, or you've invested to come here and spend time. So my argument is quite simple. The technology is really important, but from a human perspective, you have a part to play. You need to be a protagonist, right? You need to be a hero or heroine. You need to be provocative, or a provocatix, which is a female version of a provocateur, right? You have to be provocative. An example of this is, and my team are going to hide their head in shame, 18 months ago, I wrote to all our CFOs and CEOs and said, you know what, I've got the data to say that we can put an extra 500 million, that's $500 million working capital back into the company by reducing the order to cash process. You think that that would be a hero statement, right? But it wasn't. Everybody hated me. I had a big target on my back for a period of time. But when you work in shared services, or you work in a GBS environment, people perceive your value contribution in a different way. So you have to be provocative in your statements and how you act and behave in order to get people interested in what you're trying to do. So driving process re-engineering might not sound super sexy, but when it hits the bottom line and the working capital cost has gone through the roof as it has recently, it becomes strategic. So the step change from being a GBS into real value creation comes from you. It comes from people. It won't always come from technology. It's technology enabled. You will use data mining, as we did with Celonis, to provide the factual information that drove that business case. So I encourage you all to be both the protagonist and be provocative. Employees are absolutely critical, right? We're all employees in some shape or form, unless you own your own company. But we need to be empathetic because, according to the International Monetary Fund, AI will displace 40% of the workforce in the next decade. Now, I had another provocative statement with our CFO. I said, Marco, in the next 3 to 5 years, I will be able to do all of the work I have today with 50% less people. Great, fantastic, Rod, delightful, super. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let 50% of the people go. It means I'm going to double the capacity of what I can offer the business through engineering, people's career paths to take them from subject matter expert and something like R to R, giving them technical capabilities so they can add a different type of value. So you can actually increase your value to an organization by upskilling, by embracing technology and driving it in a different way. So we need to be empathetic and make sure that the fear and frustration that's grown into our companies through this technical revolution, we harness it. Orchestration and operations, that might sound particularly fancy, but really collaboration across your organization is critical. Many organizations are siloed, and I'm seeing quite a few people nodding right now. But when you work in a shared service or in a global business services, you have streams, right? Cross-stream leadership and management is essential. Getting people to, cross-fertilization of ideas, moving people around, is absolutely critical. So working in an orchestrated way is of absolute help. Partnering with purpose. Last year, some of the partners with Nokia were here. And I was absolutely delighted to hear what they said and what they did. This year, I'm very proud that some of our partners are here as well. We partner with EY for our Digitax. We partner with them when we start to look at our strategy and how we move forward. There's a young gentleman there with a face that I recognize. We also partner with Wipro when it comes to helping us drive our transformation. So partnerships are extremely important. They're no longer vendors. They're key stakeholders in what we're trying to achieve. Choosing your partners carefully is absolutely critical, as it is in life, right? But your personal purpose is equally as important. What do you bring to the table? So when you wake up in the morning, I don't want you to be thinking about the toilet paper or the phone. I want you to be thinking about when you brush your teeth, what is your purpose? What do you bring to the table? What is your role in your organization? And is it people-centric or technology and organized? And how do you work that through? Legacy mindset, both past and future. Most of you have organizations that are steeped in history. How do you harness that? And how do you help that propel you into the future? Because this is not all just about technology. It's about how do you get the right sort of people engaged in the right way to drive the right sort of outcomes. And finally, evolution to revolution. Buckle up for the technology revolution. In here is future technology. This is the latest thinking in here that comes from Bell Labs. It is minute, so minute that if I opened it, it would disappear and would never see it again. I'm kidding, it's an empty, right? Just in case anyone was getting super excited. But the transformation from paper mill to the cutting edge technology that we have is outstanding. But it takes people and it takes innovation, and that innovation doesn't always come from the technology. You're wondering why there's 2 bottles of alcohol at the end here, right? It's quite simple. Last year, I spent time with 2 people. I listened in this auditorium to someone from Tesco's who talked about how they had driven a revolution in their organization using data, big data, to find new markets, to generate new revenue. That gave us an idea, light bulb, which then turned into how we use data to help drive our working capital. The conversation that we had with Campari colleagues. Anyone here from Campari? No, they were here last year. But also that gave me a fantastic lesson as well, in the fact that not everyone's at the same stage of development. And what I encourage you all to do is not sit together with the people that you've traveled here with, but actually work and talk to people who come from different backgrounds, come from different organizations, different countries, because that's the experience that they'll share with you. These are the ideas that will allow you to move on to your next stage. Use this as a platform to connect and make sure that you spend as much time as you can with people. Thank you very much.